Diplomats from Sweden, Finland, Denmark, Latvia, Lithuania and Estonia have called on Brussels to provide concrete proposals on how to decisively advance Ukraine's EU accession process. Their joint letter was published by Politico. The authors of the document insist that the EU enlargement process must be predictable and bilateral issues should not be used to block progress.
Reaffirming full and unequivocal commitment to the EU membership perspective of Ukraine, we call for accelerating the accession process. The time has come for ambitious and effective decisions in this regard. Ukraine has shown remarkable reform progress. It is now time for us to mobilize the efforts to help Ukraine make this happen. From the joint letter of diplomats from EU member states, published by Politico.
The diplomats' appeal came in response to new demands from the Prime Minister of Hungary. On March 15th, Viktor Orban posted on social media under the headline "What the Hungarian people want from Brussels." Among the 12 points was an ultimatum union without Ukraine. Orban's gesture was commented on by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Poland, which will hold the presidency of the EU Council starting January 1st, 2025.
As the presiding country, we feel a special responsibility for this. We would like to open one, perhaps even a second negotiation block, but I regret to say that this is yet another issue where decision-making is being blocked by our old friend, once an ally, Hungary. Radoslav Sikorski, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Poland from the Onet Wiadomości publication.
In Lithuania, there are proposals to set a deadline for Ukraine's EU accession January 1st, 2030. Prime Minister Gintautas Paluckas believes this will act as a stimulus for faster reforms and demonstrate Brussels' determination to comfort Moscow's hybrid threats.
Just as 97 years ago, we are facing a strategic choice. Allow the aggressor to spread fear and violence, or stop him. Stop his ability to intimidate us. We must build a reliable defense wall between Europe and Russia. In the short term, we must support Ukraine. It is clear that Ukraine needs military assistance, ammunition, long-range missiles, and we are ready to provide them. Gintautas Paluckas, Prime Minister of Lithuania, from a statement before the EU summit in Brussels.
Lithuania's proposed 2030 deadline for Ukraine's EU accession is also supported by the President of the European Commission. Ursula von der Leyen previously stated that the pace and quality of Ukraine's reforms make it possible to set this date. 2030 is considered the latest possible deadline for Ukraine's European integration, according to the Prime Minister of Finland. Petteri Orpo stated that Europe has learned lessons from Russia's war against Ukraine. Moscow remains and will continue to be a constant threat to the continent's security.
We have to be ambitious. We have to build our defense in close cooperation with the US, and the target should be that the European pillar in NATO is as strong as possible, less dependent from the others. But you are right, it is a very ambitious goal, but we have to start right now.
In the current situation, the European Union needs to be quick in decision-making and clear tools to protect itself from vetoes by individual EU member states, said President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky during an online speech at the European Council meeting.
It's unfortunate to say this, but some pressure is also needed within Europe itself to ensure that anything promised actually happens. And I'm talking about Ukraine's EU accession talks and resolving some fundamental issues for European unity. It's simply anti-European when one person blocks decisions that are important for the entire continent or that have already been agreed upon.
Volodymyr Zelensky noted that Ukraine has met the EU's requirements and therefore expects the opening of negotiation clusters in the near future. Reported by Alexandra Zaslavets, Larissa Petruk, UATV News.
Ukraine's accession to the European Union would be the most significant security guarantee for its future. European Council President Antonio Costa stated this during his visit to Kyiv on the third anniversary of the full-scale war. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky also emphasized that if Ukraine becomes a member of both the EU and NATO, it could prevent Russia from launching another attack in the future.
If we speak about how to prepare security because of the Russia, they can come back in 10 years if we will not be prepared. They will not come back if we will pressure them, put them to their place, to their territory. And if Ukraine will be in EU and in NATO in closest years, of course it will help us very much.
European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen believes Ukraine could become an EU member within the next 5 years if it continues its reforms.
I would even say Ukraine merit-based process, if they continue at that speed and at that quality, perhaps they could be earlier than 2030. So thank you very much for giving the impulse, and let's work hard on all sides really to keep the momentum up.
The European Commission has stated that negotiations on Ukraine's accession to the EU could open in 3 clusters before Poland's EU presidency ends in June. These clusters include first, fundamentals, second, internal market, and 6, international relations. However, several steps still need to be taken before all 6 clusters can be opened.
We want to move forward with the enlargement process for Ukraine to open as many as possible, but preferably all clusters in the negotiations with Ukraine on membership, and also to make use of all of the frozen Russian assets to really make Russia pay for the damage that they have caused in Ukraine. This is what I'm primarily looking forward to discussing today.
Minister for the EU of Poland, Adam Slapka, has confirmed that during Poland's EU presidency, negotiations on Ukraine's accession will at least open the fundamentals cluster. However, he acknowledged that opening further clusters could spark debates among EU member states.
As a presiding EU country, we are fully committed to supporting Ukraine and advancing the EU enlargement process. That is what we aim to accomplish during Poland's presidency. We are also prepared to open the 6th cluster, but this will be a highly challenging discussion, as there is no unanimous agreement among member states. Adam Slapka, Minister for the EU of Poland, in an interview with Polish media.
Deputy Prime Minister for European and Euro-Atlantic Integration, Minister of Justice of Ukraine, Olga Stefanishina, announced that Ukraine, together with Poland and Denmark, both of which will hold the EU presidency in 2025, has developed a roadmap for opening accession negotiation chapters. Kyiv aims to open the first negotiation cluster with the EU as early as April, with plans to open all remaining clusters by the end of 2025, Stefanishina previously explained. She also noted that Poland's EU presidency has proposed starting negotiations on foreign and security policy, including trade policy.
If the first cluster is the soul of our future membership, the internal market is its body. You can aspire to the EU with your soul, but you can't reach it on your feet. That's why the first and second clusters are crucial for us. Olga Stefanishina, Deputy Prime Minister for European and Euro-Atlantic Integration, Minister of Justice of Ukraine, from a speech at the accession of Ukraine to the EU conference.
Previously, President Volodymyr Zelensky stated that Ukraine aims to open at least 2 negotiation clusters in 2025. However, the ultimate goal remains to open all 6 clusters, he emphasized. EU accession negotiations for new member states are divided into 35 chapters grouped into 6 clusters. Reported by Katerina Bastun, KD, UATV News.